So today we'll create a basic mobile application just like this. So you can see here in example there is a basic login screen. So when we give a username and a password, the user could able to log into the screen. Okay. So when the user press login, he could able to successful login. When there is a successful login, it pop-ups an alert login successful and shows the home page. So in additionally, what we're going to do today is we're going to add bottom tabs just like this: home, then there is a product screen, then add card screen. Okay, so these three tabs called bottom tabs, and also we're going to add a drawer. So this thing is called as drawer. So when the user press sign out, he could able to sign out. At the same time, when the user press close drawer, it closes the drawer. So let's see an example. So when the user press sign out, he could able to sign out. If the user provide any incorrect credentials, when the user press login, it should say error, please check the username and password. So this is what we're going to do today, a basic mobile application using Expo. So what you have to do is just go to expo.dev. Okay, so there we can see so it provides a basic version of Expo. uh, so it provides some basic syntax. So if you want to use this, you can start edit this code from the scratch, or you can delete everything and start from the beginning. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is at the very beginning I'm going to import some dependencies and React components. So what I'm going to do is okay, so I'm going to import React. Then I already have my application, so I just simply copy and paste, and I'll explain what are the uses of those. Okay, so next thing I'm going to import the components. So these are the components that I'm going to use in my application. You don't have to add this at the beginning. When you start developing the application, you can add these components through these import elements. So I'm going to use text elements, view, and there are some style sheets. Okay, and these are the elements I'm going to use. Then third thing, I'm going to use some icons. So let's see. Okay, so these are the icons I'm going to use. So when you add some additional dependencies, it pop-ups an error. So simply you can click add dependency to install that dependency into the your project. So you can see ION icons. So I'll show you how it's working. So ION icons provide some free basic icons. So you can find a bunch of icons here. So if you want to use those icons, simply you can press and you can see they give a web component code and it has a name element. So if you want to use that icon, you can simply copy that name element and you can use it inside the JavaScript, your Expo project. Okay, so next thing, we're going to use some navigation. So at the beginning I show you some navigation thing. Okay, so just like this. Okay, so these are the drawers, and when you press login, it should navigate from one screen to another. So I'm going to use Navigator as well, so I'm going to use it. Okay, So these are the things I'm going to use. Okay, these are the things I'm going to import. So I'm going to use a navigation container, that also an npm dependency. So I just simply use add dependency to add this dependency. Then next, so we'll create a stack navigator to navigate between the screens. So this is what I'm going to use, React navigation stack. So that also a dependency. I just add the dependency into it. Okay. Then at the beginning I told you I'm going to use a drawer. So I'm going to add a drawer. So this also an npm package. So we use that drawer navigation. Okay. So it has some dependencies. Okay. Okay. So it keep producing an error because we don't have an app return. Okay, so we can fix it. Then at last I'm going to import a bottom tabs dependency. Okay, so these are the dependencies I'm going to use. So I just use all the dependencies. Okay, by default we need to mention, okay, we need to mention a default function or default return method. Okay, so that's why it's producing an error. So you can say export default app. So we need to return that. Okay, so inside here okay, so still it gives me an error. Let me write a function. Okay, so that's why it's keep producing an error. So I just write an empty function app here return. Okay, so inside this we can create all the views and everything. Okay, okay, I forgot to say you can keep save your project. I just running it online, so I don't save it. Okay, so you can save it. Okay, so we'll put something empty view. Okay, okay, so now it's all done. So now what we're going to do is we create all the dependencies what we need. So we import all the dependencies here, right? And we'll start build our application. Okay, so before that I'm going to add some components. Okay, so I'll add some components into it. Okay, just going to build. Okay, so I'll create new folder, new project, just folder, and I'm going to call that folder called components. Inside that components I'm going to create, okay, I'll name it as source. Inside that okay, so inside this I'm going to create images. Okay, so inside this image folder I'm going to add the images what I need to use. Okay, so simply you can click on that folder and you can just click import files and click browse. So already I have some files. Okay, so already I have some images, so I'm going to use all these images. Okay, and press import 10 items. Okay, simply dismiss this. Okay, so sometimes these images added directly to your project, so you can simply drag and drop those images into that folder. Okay, so there are 9 images and my logo file. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we'll create the very basic login screen. Okay, so we'll create my login screen at the beginning. Okay, so I'll start writing my function. Login screen. Okay, inside this should turn. Okay, so inside this login function I need to write my code. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is I'll create a view. Okay, so every time when I start a view, just exit it. Okay, so this is my first view. So how can I apply a style to this view? Just go here and you need to mention style, which is equals to styles dot container. So I'm going to use a container style. Okay. Okay, so how can I define a style? Just go down. Okay, so after this I should add a style to my view. So I'll create a constructor called styles. Okay, then these all are under styles type categories. So style sheet. So we'll create multiple style sheets. So let's write create. Okay, so inside this style sheet we'll create so many style sheets. Okay, so let me exit it. Okay, so inside here we'll create so many instances. Okay. So let's create very first style. So like I told you before already, I had the code, so I just simply copy and paste this. Okay, so this is my very first style, container. So that container style have a padding size of 40 and flex 1 and a background color. So if you want to change the color, you just simply go for multiple colors. Okay, so this is the color that I'm going to use. Okay, so if you want to change any color, you can use this. Okay, you can simply copy this hex code and paste it here to change the color. Okay, so this is my very basic background style. Okay, so next thing what I'm going to do is I just give you the skeleton idea. Okay, inside that I'm going to create a logo. So let me explain the code. So this is what I did. Okay, so I create a new view. That view get a style of logo container, so we need to define a logo style. So let's create that. We'll go one by one. So next style I am going to create is logo container. So now we can use that style just above logo container. Okay, we had that style. Then I am going to import an image. Okay, then styles. For an image I am going to create another style called logo. Okay, so let's create that style as well. Okay, so we define a width and a height for that image and align it to the center. So now we have that style. Then source produce an error because of this path, I think. So that's source. Now it's done. So dot slash your folder source components images, then this image I am going to use this logo. Okay, so now we using all JPG images and PNG images mixed together. Okay, so now let's okay, so now we have an image. Okay, so there is no errors, so you can simply check by, okay, I'm running it on iOS because it load faster, somewhat faster than Android. So I just start loading it. So if it shows queue position 8, you have to wait until it comes to 0. So there are so many people waiting, I think. It's an online free version, so until it comes to 0 you can build your remaining code. Okay, so we'll keep it as it is and create the other components. Okay, so we already had the logo, so what are the next things we need to have is we'll put a bottom text. Okay, so this image is completely used to hold that image. Okay, that text. Okay, so below this text, below this image we have a text. Okay, just below this text we have an image. It's called get ready for a burger. Okay, so that's the tagline we're going to use. Okay, so let's keep loading. Okay, so I'll try to reload it. Okay, so let's wait until it get load. So I'll do the remaining code until it's get loading. Okay, so after that view we'll create some text input. Okay, so after this view you can create some view. Okay, so let's create another view. Okay, so that view had a style of container, so we already have the container style. Then we're going to ask a user to input a username. So this placeholder shows a value at the beginning. What's the value that should keep? Okay, so simply I'll show you. Okay, it's get loading still. Okay, so until that I'll tell the other things. This placeholder text color is responsible for your text holder that you are using. Okay, text holder means the place of where users going to enter their values. Then next what I am going to do is on change text. On change text is the value that the user providing. Like when there's a user comes in, he going to give his username, whatever name he uses, he gives his username, and that username I'm setting it into a username variable. Okay, so I'm going to check this username and password, so I create a variable called username and assigning it to the value that is given by the user who uses the application. Okay, then the default value we giving it as username, because there will be multiple users, so the users will give any name, but at the default we can give username is the default value. Okay, then we provide a return key type. So return key type, next when you use iOS mobile, you can simply see that enter button will shows next, because there is another text box is there, you have to enter the value, so it shows next. Okay, then the style. Okay, the style we're going to use is input text. Okay, so if you want to use it, you have to define a style called input text at the bottom. Okay, so I didn't use it, I believe. Yeah, I use it. So the text that you are using, so there are some users comes and types their text, so that text will take this input text type. So just below this we'll put input text. Okay, so I define a style called input text for the people who enter their username. Okay, next thing, I'm going to put another text input which is called password. So that password has the same properties of placeholder text. Then on change text, which is the password that's given by the user, will set a password variable. Then the default value of that password field is password, and the return key type is code. Okay, so I can show you here. You can see when there's a user wants to type his username, you can see the username, that return key type is next. Okay, so when he press next, this one, you can see the return type is go. Okay, so that's responsible by this. Okay, okay, done. So what's next thing we need to do is we need to validate the username and password. So now we don't use any database here, so we can't check a random username and password, so we'll go with some pre-built username and passwords. Okay, so we'll define a username and password, so that username will be checked in this to move on to the next screen. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that username and password check should innovate when the user presses the button. So we don't want to use a regular button style, we're going to use an touchable opacity. Okay, so we're going to use a touchable opacity. So after this we're going to use touchable opacity. So now you can see, okay, this touchable opacity will act as a button. Okay, so we're going to use a button container style, so let's define that style. So every time when you want to use a style, you just simply define it with the name, so button container. So you can put a color for the button, and I just provide a vertical padding of 15. Okay, so that style will be applied to that button. Then we define, there are two variables called username and password. Okay, that will innovate when there is a user comes and press that button. Okay, so when the user presses a button, these settings will be, so on that user presses, it checks the username and password. If the username and password will be Sam and the password is ABC123, it pop up an alert. Okay, and an alert type login successful. Okay, if that login is successful, it will navigate to the page called home. So I just using pre-build existing code. So we'll see this later. We'll see this later how it is working. Okay, so I just comment this. Okay, simply I can. Okay, so when it's necessary, we'll take back that command and activate. So at the beginning, you just go with login successful. Okay, else it should pop up an error. Error, please check the username and password. Okay, so this is what we're going to use. So this will check the username and password is correct or wrong. Okay, so next thing, it it say an error in username and password. Why? Because we need to pass that variables inside this. Okay, we need to pass that variables inside this. So we'll build two constructor username comma set uname. Okay, so I'm going to write a method called set uname, and we'll tell that it's an event going to happen, a use state. Okay, then the password method, password, that also an event. Okay. So there is use state, we need to use a use state, so I'm going to use that from React bundle. So simply you can say I'm going to use React. At the same time, I'm going to use state. Okay. So now it's work fine, I think. So we build a basic, very basic login screen. Okay, plus. So usually it takes time because we are using very basic free version of Expo. So we'll wait until it's get loading. Okay, now you can see a page is start loading just like this. Okay, so you can see there is a text input, username and password, and the login button. Okay, so that will innovate when you provide a username called Sam and this ABC123 as a password. Okay, so let's create the next screen. Okay, so how you can create it and run, so simply you can run it using login screen. Okay, so now you give a login screen and it's get loaded. Okay. So you have to provide which function you are writing, so this comes under the login screen function, so you can simply provide login screen to make it run. Okay, so it says get ready for a burger. Okay, so we using a style called title, so but we didn't create a separate style for that, that's why it show like that. So we'll create a title. Okay, so if you want to customize it, you can give a proper styling to that. Okay, so we didn't concern much more on style, just for the contents. Okay, so we'll create the next screen when the user presses that login button. Okay, so when the user presses the login button, it will open. Okay, so it will open that login. Okay, next page. Okay, so we will have a very basic login screen just like this. Okay, next. So here we provide, here what we provide, uh, a home, right? So we provide a home, so we'll create that next. Okay, we'll create that next. So before we move on to that, before we create a home page, we have two more elements, okay, which is home drawer, that sidebar drawer, and that bottom tabs. So we'll create that because which is comes under home tab. Okay, so those two components are placed over the home page. Okay, so I'll name it as home screen and create it. Okay, so after this we'll create a function called home screen and create it. Okay, so we create a home screen just like this. Okay, I'll just make it bigger. Okay, so I had a home screen just like this. So there are two variables passed inside this home screen. Which one? First one is navigation, second is route. Okay, so there is a difference between route and navigation. Okay, so navigation means you are shifting from one screen to another, right? So here you can see we are navigate back to that login screen. Okay, so earlier we were in login screen and navigate to home screen, then home screen to login screen. That's why we're going to use navigation. Route is between the same screen, moving from one screen to another screen inside a same screen. Okay, so for that purpose we'll use route. Okay, so you may be asked, so why we didn't pass this navigation to the login screen as well. So we need to mention that login screen also should use navigation. Okay, so we have navigation here. Okay, so this will navigate back to home screen. Okay, so I just take back this comment. Okay, so this navigate will redirect back to the home screen. Okay, so now we have a home screen. So we pass two properties, navigation and the route. Actually two different variables, they have two different purposes. Okay, so this route applied to pass an item, which is when there's a user log into it, we going to greet them with their username. So you can see at the beginning I show how this application is built. So when the user provide Sam and his name, it says welcome Sam to the application. So we get in an username input from the user and we display it as an item in a next screen. So we need to take that value from the login screen and use it in a home screen. So that parameters are used here. Okay, then we return a navigation, okay, which is called drawer. So it couldn't able to find this drawer, so we have to create a separate drawer properties. Okay, so we'll create a constructor drawer at top of it, create drawer navigator. Okay, so create drawer navigator, then my home screen function. Okay, then I am passing the parameters of item ID, which is comes from here, just a look, which is comes from here. This username will be taken here. Okay, so to that purpose we're going to use item id, okay, as an initial parameter. Okay, then we are customizing that navigator, that drawer navigator. Okay, so custom drawer content is cause an error, so let's fix that. Okay, so we need to write a method called custom drawer navigator and pass all that values. Okay, so custom drawer content, so we'll create that next. So I'm going to create a method called custom drawer content. So we had a properties, okay, so that properties are returned under this custom drawer content. Okay, so we use that custom drawer content to apply a property to close a drawer. So at the beginning I show you when the user press close drawer, that should close that drawer page. Okay, so how you can draw to indicate, so you can mention close drawer, or so simply you can put close. If you put simply close, it shows close at that drawer, to close that drawer. Okay, so this is how we can create a method to create a label inside a drawer to close that drawer. Okay, then we'll move back, and this is another way to define styles. Okay, this is another way to define styles because we use a custom drawer, so we don't initialize it as globally. Okay, so to apply that style to that component only, we can we can use a style just like this screen options, and we're going to define the style directly to that component. Okay, just like that we create drawer screen as well. Okay, so that drawer screen hold a primary name like burger cloud, that's my application name, so that's what I mentioned, burger club. Then home page, when the user presses that component, it should move back to the home page, any page he was in, and it moves back to the home page. So we'll create a home page function after this. Okay, so we'll just provide a name called home page, but it is not available, so that's why it shows a warning, because you don't have a home page is not defined. So we'll create a home page, and the initial parameter I'm going to use item id 1 in home page, and that's route through item id. So that's what I define here. Then the third one, when the user presses sign out, it's move back to the component called login screen and close the current window. So now we have only one warning, which is home page. So let's create a home page. Okay, so let's create a home page next. Okay, so we have a home page now, so that home page also need to use route and navigation. So we add a bottom tab to it. Okay, so let's create a bottom tab. So that tab is comes under this home page. Okay, so there are two different screens, one is home screen and a home page. Okay, so in a home screen we had that drawer. Okay, drawer and that basic element part, that basic name and greeting in a home screen. Okay, this home page contains that bottom tabs. Okay, so that tab is produce an error warning. Okay, so we need to create a constructor. tab. Okay, so we have a tab. Okay, so that item ID 1 is route through parameters and get used here. Okay, so we telling that item ID comes through home page and we are using it here as well. Okay, so next thing, in this tab we have a constructor for create bottom tab navigator. Okay, and we added that bottom tab properties. Okay, so let's see what are the properties that bottom tab had. Okay, so these are some pre-built models, pre-built functions that already we have. Okay, we already had that is import through that drawer functions and create bottom tab navigator from react navigation slash bottom tabs. Okay, so we already had that, so simply we call that and use that to create bottom tabs. Okay, so now you can see here this function home, navigation and route. We need to pass those two because we going to navigate between screens at the same time. Route in inside a same screen. So, okay, and we use that route to pass parameters in a screen. Okay. So first thing what we did is in that tab navigator we have that very first option, that screen option, route. Okay, so you can see that route applies from here to here completely. That route is applied to all the icons that you are using. Okay, first route is get focused and we pass two attributes, color and size. Okay, so we can say it's in proper size and a color. So that color is tomato, so you can use any color, right? Tomato is used as a color indication element here. So color of a tomato, it takes that color of a tomato. Okay, then the route name is home, so we're going to use some route names. Okay, so that will use to navigate between the screen. So you can see here the tab screen name is products, tab screen name is home, then tab screen name is add cart. So these are the three different screens we're going to use. Okay, then we say that directly go to the components. Which one? First one is home stack screen, then product screen and cart screen. So these two screens we going to make it later. Okay, so second thing here we have a products and return method and we get that icon from fast food outline. Okay, we are getting it from fast food outline. So we have some pending elements, so I just show you how that bottom tab is visible on that pre-built, already built application. Okay, so these names are comes from ION icons. So let me go to ION icons. So you can simply search for an icon, home. So you can see here home, home dash outline. So if you use home outline, okay, so iOS home they're using, so simply you can use, okay, home dash outline. That name also you can use here. So we use iOS home, so or else you can use home. Okay, you can use this name home outline. Just simply copy that name, home outline. That's my name, the ID, home outline. So simply you can save that and use as a cut. Okay. So like that you can use based on the property or based on the usage, you can use fast food outline and cart outline. So that are the things that I'm using here. Okay, so we have three different tabs. Okay, so let me show you what's that tabs are. So I'm giving Sam, then password ABC 123. So actually you have to give some protective password. So protective password means you must use 8 characters. 8 characters you have to use, including a capital letter and a symbol, and numbers and letters. Okay, so these are the criteria when you have to use a secure password. So even if you want to go for a testing purpose, use some secure password methods. Okay, so let's go login. So after a successful login, so you can see home cart. Okay, so this bottom is called as bottom tabs. So that's what we created at the beginning. Okay, so let's create these two pages, product and add cart. Okay, so creating a product page, we don't have much more complex in this product screen. So we can create product screen. So let's create next function called product screen and create product screen. Okay, so before that, okay, let's create a product screen, then we create a count. So this is my product screen. Okay, so it goes an error because of this question source. Okay, so simply just like you create an HTML page, we can create that product page. Okay, so we have a return method. Inside that we apply a container style, and this is my text. Okay, so to that text I didn't use any style. So if I want to use any style, I can define this text under new separate view, and I can apply style. Okay, so if I want to use, okay, home, we have a welcome button. Okay, so let's check, and I'm going to use the same style used earlier. Okay, we didn't create it yet. Okay, so before we creating that home, inside home panel we created that product screen. Okay, so hope you all know how we added an image at the login screen. The same way I added this menu screen as well. Okay, so inside this product page I created all the product items pictures, okay, as a menu. Okay, so we miss one thing, which is home stack screen, so we'll create that at the bottom. Okay, we'll create it at the bottom. Okay, I just missed it, or I'll create it here. Okay, I forgot to create it. Okay, so now I created that second screen, home stack screen. Okay, which is shown inside, right, which is shown inside this. Okay, so actually home stack screen is this one. Okay, this one, that's called home stack screen. Okay, so we created that drawer. Okay, we created a drawer, and also this bottom tab and my home stack screen. Okay, so stack screen is which is placed inside the screen. Okay, so it shows an item ID 2 is used, and welcome to the Burger Cloud. So this item ID is a routing parameter which is given by the user. When the user gives his name, that is assigned and taken as an item ID 2, and it is used as hi item ID 2, welcome to the Burger Cloud. So if a user call A, it says, "Hi A, welcome to the Burger Club." Likewise, it will work. Then next we created a product screen. Right? Third thing, we need to create that card screen. Okay, so let's create that card screen too. So we have a home stack screen, then product screen, then I will create a card screen. Okay, so now I added a card screen. So that card have three different properties. Okay, so every time when you use new property, you have to create a constructor. Okay, so every time when you use a new variable, you need to say that I'm going to have variable. Okay, and that variable had some properties to be used. Okay, so I have three different parameters or three different variables. One is that user's name, okay, then location, then the Swift code. So I asked the user to provide these three, and I'm going to tell that your order is placed and it will comes to that code, uh, to that location, and that discount code is applied. Okay, likewise it will produce some redeem redeemable Swift code, okay, to that product. So I'm going to have three different variables, so I define it like this. Then I return just like the the text box you used. Okay, so it uses container, so this text input. Okay, text input and the same product name, delivery location, and a Swift code. It's just like how you used in um, login. Okay, so I think I missed some color, so I just copied from this. Okay, so GBA. Okay, so I put 0, so that's why it comes empty. Okay. So I'm going to use how it is look like in home, that login page inside here. So, okay, so this will responsible for that redeemable tokens page, that last one, that card page. Okay, so when it says that, alert will pop up and say alert product name, I'm calling the variable name. Okay, then the location address, then the Swift code. Okay, so every section charges will be reduced. Okay, so we can put star, charges will be reduced from the Swift code, and it shows the Swift code as well. Okay, so we created three different screens just like we did before. Okay, then we miss some components. Okay, what are those? The primary app. Okay, we missed a primary app. Okay, so now you can see that function application, this will say that how this application will works. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a navigation between screens inside this function. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that navigation properties inside the application. So what I am going to say is I have a root stack. Okay, I have a root stack, that navigator, that will not model. Okay, model, right, modal, careful on it, not model. Okay, and I'm saying that this is the order that I am going to navigate between the screens. Okay, the order I am going to navigate between the screens. Okay, and you can set the properties of that navigation, background color and everything. Okay, so this is what I am going to do. Okay, so if you want to change that color, just like I told you before, simply copy the code, because I just by mistakenly use some random colors, that's why. Okay, the same color, no problem. Okay, so this is how I'm going to navigate. So I created two new variables, so I'm going to tell that I had that variables. Okay, then I need to say I have a main stack. Okay, that's the purpose of using it. Okay. Main stack screen. Okay, so this main stack screen method will say that there is a screen called login is available, so that will help to navigate between the screens, that home screen and login screen, because we have primarily two screens only. The other screens are around inside the home page. Okay, that's like when you click on the product page, it will pop up or it will appear under the home screen. Okay, so that's how we're going to build this. Okay, so I just save this. Okay, so hope I covered the whole project. Okay, hope I covered the whole project, and I'll try to run it whether it will work fine or not. I'll just simply save it. So usually it will take time because we are using a free version of it, so wait until it's get loaded. So it may produce an error because we didn't change it back. So earlier it was in login screen, so change it back to app. Okay, so this is how you can build a complete mobile application. So careful on these elements, which is responsible for which action. Okay, so always when you build from a skeleton or a pre-built skeleton, you need to have a complete knowledge on how those components are made and how the changes on components will reflect on your final output. Okay, so thank you.